When director and co-writers Peter Jackson and partner Fran Walsh released Heavenly Creatures in 1994, it still managed to strike a nerve. It renewed interest in the 40-year-old crime and the two girls at the center of the brutal murder of Honorah Parker, Juliet Hume and the victim's own daughter, Pauline. Too juicy of a scoop to ignore, media began searching the two women out, and eventually they were found, no longer teenagers, but middle-aged women. And after spending almost 5.5 years in prison, the two women had been released in secret. They moved out of New Zealand and changed their names in hopes to start over. Juliet became better known as best-selling mystery writer Anne Perry. Both women dreamt of becoming writers since childhood, but Anne was destined to make it true. When journalists found her, she was surrounded by a close-knit and fiercely loyal team of friends and colleagues. They felt the news of the movie claiming Anne to be Juliet was ridiculous, and at first they didn't believe the story. But Anne told them, "You have to, because it's all true." She told the media she has not spoken to Pauline since their sentences began in 1954, and besides wishing her old friend well, Perry and her team refused to answer any more questions. Finding Anne Perry wasn't hard at all. She wasn't exactly hiding. However, finding Pauline, or now Hillary Nathan, was proving more difficult. After some time, Nathan was found, living almost like a recluse, an extremely simple life. Her home was barely furnished, she didn't own a phone, and she ate mostly easy meals like sandwiches. Some media gained access to Nathan's property under false pretenses, taking her off guard. And when confronted with these questions, Nathan denied ever being Pauline and said she was only ever known as Hillary, and she refused to speak to them any further. But of course, they didn't believe her, and so to appease the ever-prodding press, her older sister Wendy came forward as her spokeswoman. Wendy told everyone her sister has spent her life praying and asking for forgiveness. And though extremely simple, Wendy told media that Hillary had a good life. She obtained her university degree while incarcerated, and once out of prison, Nathan became a special needs educator and eventually ran a horse stable, teaching kids to ride and care for horses. She was also an extremely devout Roman Catholic, attending church daily. The people who knew Hillary from church or work were stunned. How could the woman they knew be a killer? Sure, she was a little quirky, but overall she was nice and gentle and kind. The circle of supporters surrounding Anne had a similar thought. How could this be true about the loving and wonderful human they knew? And who the hell really was Anne Perry and Hillary Nathan? The story was back making headlines and spreading faster and further than ever before, thanks to the 24-hour news cycle. And even without the internet, this true story of two killer teens who killed for love was gaining new interest. Now there was a movie and a soundtrack to it. There have been countless works influenced from this case, like films and docudramas and stage plays, novels, and nonfiction crime books. One such book claims to be the only complete true telling of this case, and that their work is completely biographical and the lead source. As part of my investigation into this crime and this case, this book, among many others, is just a few things I will be diving into to see where the truth lies in this story. Because why would someone claim their book is the one and only complete resource and disregard all other works done by scholars and academics? That would pave the way for others, assuming that it's correct, and adding to a long list of retellings of the same incorrect, prejudicial beliefs, regurgitations of poorly researched, unchecked, and sensationalized partial facts with outdated information and diary entries taken out of context or worse, completely falsified. In an interview about Heavenly Creatures, filmmakers said they wanted to show a more sympathetic view of the girls. And so in this version, they took pieces of a teenage diary, which had fictional stories and poems, chunks of highly sus research from the defense psychologist who not only embarrassed the court with their theory, but it also got completely tossed out. And then add this to the gossip from the backstabbing friend of the family who became a source for the movie, mix them all up, and you have Heavenly Creatures. One long hot topic of conversation is if the girls were truly lesbians. What was the impact of that on this murder case and within the conservative community of Christchurch? Then what was it about this case that has interested millions of people all over the world for the last 7 decades? Strangely enough, even with all this media coverage and movies and dime store novels and crime anthologies, another question that often pops up but is not often explored is, who was Honorah Parker? Who was the victim? She was the mother of one of the convicted teens, yet she's all but overlooked. Other than the movie portrayal of Honorah and even her husband Herbert, there's really not much discussed about either of them. But the movie versions of who they seem to be is not a correct picture of who they really were, and you might be surprised at the secrets they were hiding. Why does it matter? The 2 girls were convicted. They went to prison. Who cares? Why bother looking into a case that not only happened decades ago in another country? Why look at it at all? It was solved. We know who did it. But there's still questions that ring in my head about what harm did the media do? And what are the ethical issues when reporting on cases like this? Is it important? And simply put, every story is important and every crime has something to teach us. So let's deep dive into Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures. But before that, hi, and welcome to Ink Noir, the podcast where the worlds of true crime and the craft of writing collide. I'm your host, The Wrathful Proser, and this is the debut episode and season of Ink Noir. I invite you to join me into looking into crimes committed by writers and authors. Anne Perry's case is much bigger than I imagined, and I only expected 1 or 2 episodes per writer, but digging into this has really exploded, and it's going to be a multi-part YouTube podcast hybrid project. So thank you to everyone who's joining me and coming along for this unexpected and crazy ride. There's discussions of very sensitive issues, which include sexual and physical abuse. So please, listening and viewing discretion is advised. My opinions are my own, and they're based on my research and experiences. This is for educational and entertainment purposes. Healthy and mature discussions from all angles are encouraged, but trolls will be discarded with the rest of the trash.